Hey guys, welcome back. So recently we took a look at a German card that was graded on purpose with a fake stamp in an attempt to test PSA. Today we're going to look at an older example of something that is significantly more expensive and that was graded with the, intention of fooling people. This one much more malicious, in my opinion. So let's get into it. I think first of all, take this as a learning experience. This is what you might have to deal with. Even if something's graded, it doesn't matter by which company. It's a good idea to take a look at it yourself. If you do want to grade cards, this is what you need to do regardless. It's a good idea. And we'll go through the entire process. I'll put a link down below to the actual thread on E4, as well as some other of the Microscope resource thread and the Microscope videos that I did, where you should definitely, if you're buying these cards, especially with the prices that they're at now, you should be educating yourself on what to look for. And if something looks off, then do some more digging. So. All right, this is a post by Fazool. This is the person that ended up with this fake stamp, Charizard. And we'll read through it all. This is going to be a long-winded video, but I think it's important to provide at least most of the information in case someone needs to reference it in the future, to kind of get an idea of what's going on here, what should have been looked for, and how to get this resolved. So, Fazool says, over the past couple of months, I started collecting a basic set of the first edition base holos as a fun little hobby because I already had a copy of Charizard and Venusaur graded by PSA from a year ago. It was going great, and I've been really enjoying it. But while adding the Gyarados I got in the mail yesterday to the collection, something on my Charizard caught my eye that is giving me a lot of anxiety. I purchased the card already PSA graded, untampered with. Granted, it's only a 4. I love it regardless. Looking at the stamp now, something isn't right. I never paid much acute attention to it because I bought it graded. So here are some pictures, and we'll take a look at those in just a minute. I just don't know what to do. Maybe I'm totally wrong, and that is an authentic stamp, and I have nothing to worry about. It's just some rare thing that isn't where my others are. I really don't know what to do if it isn't authentic. Huge pit in my stomach right now. Here's a full picture if you cannot click on the links in the comment. So, taking a look at the picture here, as someone that's seen a ton of first edition stamps, even though you can't see it in detail, the stamp is not in the right location and it doesn't look right. Now, to somebody new, especially somebody that's trusting PSA to authenticate this, should be a very important part, just like it was on the German card that they missed. They should be checking every single stamp because in this case, in many cases, a shadowless Charizard is not going to be nearly as expensive as the first edition base, which is going to lead people with bad intent that are looking to take advantage of others to add a stamp of their own. If you don't know what you're looking for, or if the grader, whether it's PSA or anyone else, is not paying enough attention to it, which they definitely should be. But if they're not paying enough attention to it, if they're just going through cards and giving them a grade, it's a 4, whatever, I'm going to lunch soon. Let me just slap this baby in a case. Maybe they don't know what they're looking for at this point in time. Keep in mind, this is 2017. Pokemon wasn't as popular. This was only a $500 card at the time. But at the same time, that's what you're paying for. You're paying for authenticity and their opinion on the condition of the card itself. So without those, why are you sending it to them? Good question, but we'll see. So here we go. We got the card. You can see here that the first edition stamp is just in the wrong spot. PSA graded, no tampering done with the case whatsoever. Little close-up version. We got the first edition stamp. And again, if you're new to the hobby, if you haven't seen the Microscope resource thread, if you haven't looked at a lot of these cards, if you don't have one for comparison, which even if you don't have one for comparison, you can still look online and find something that's confirmed real. Typically, it's a good idea to use something that's PSA graded, but at the same time, this is PSA graded, so definitely don't use this one as a reference for a real card. Take a look at multiple examples. If there's something going on that's fishy, like this. Here's a little bit of a closer look. So here they are side by side. We have the Machamp, which they're all going to have first edition on them, so good luck adding a stamp to it. I guess you could remove the stamp. But the Machamp itself is probably the best example, because if you got a bunch of cards, even if they're from the same person and they're fake stamps, you can't fake a stamp that's always going to be there. So here we have it side by side. You can see the position of the stamp is off. The size of the letters is off. It's not the same stamp. There is variance in terms of thick and thin stamps, but this is just straight up altogether wrong. And it's funny because you see, even in the thread or in general, I'm sure people would be like, oh yeah, but they're the experts, and how can you doubt them, and what if it's actually real? But here at this point, to somebody that's experienced looking at this stuff, this should be glaringly obvious that there's something wrong with this, that there's almost certainly something wrong with it, even without using magnification to take a look at it. And again, that's why I encourage everyone, if you're buying these cards, especially with the price tags that are on them now, it doesn't make any sense that you're not going to go purchase a $4 jeweler's loupe with 30x magnification to inspect these cards when you get them in. So, also, very important, if you're buying from somebody, to check their feedback, unless it's somebody that you really trust or you're willing to lose the money, don't buy it friends and family. I don't care if they have 69,000 followers on Instagram or anything else. We've seen people that farm followers and then scam people and disappear or change their name. Not a good metric. Pay the extra little bit for PayPal goods and services, or if it's through eBay, if you check right away and you find out that there's something wrong with it like this, then at least you can go back and get a refund that way. So here we go. We got the Polyrath as a comparison as well. And again, the stamps, they're never going to be offloading to the side like this. I've yet to see one. I have seen some where some of the ink hasn't dried yet and will leave it on the back of another first edition base card. So you'll see a little bit of the ink removed, but it doesn't change the ink itself. It doesn't change necessarily the pattern. I have seen one that was smudged. Gary had one that basically didn't dry yet, and it must have something got rubbed up against it, and then it dried in a smudged fashion. But that was on an inexpensive card, and it very, very rare to see something that's actually smudged. So it had to be just something like a one-off at the factory, whether they grabbed it from that place where the stamp was added. As I mentioned before, and maybe for those who don't know, the first edition stamp is added afterwards, so the card is printed entirely. So your shadowless card is essentially the same card as a first edition base card, but the stamp is added. In my opinion, there is no way to replicate the first edition base stamp. First of all, materials, your ink is never going to look exactly the same. Not to mention the size, which is, unless you have the original equipment, you're not going to get the size perfect. And with the equipment that should be used at these grading companies, a microscope, for example, that can take measurements between points, different points on the stamp itself, and just the placement in general, the stamp itself and distance between other regions of interest on the card. There's no reason that any fake stamp should ever be passing through a grading company. Yes, it's going to take extra time for them to do this, but they should be on the lookout for it. It should be part of the service. How it isn't is an absolute I don't know. I don't even know what to say. It's weird that people are going to charge money for authentication and then not actually look into the points where fraud could be occurring. So colors here makes a nice GIF where you can see between one Charizard and the other, one being real, one being fake, that ignore the color difference is more just the photos that are used. But you see here where the stamp is actually supposed to be. We kind of knew that anyway. So just that on its own is enough to be a red flag. But at the same time, even if it is in the correct spot, or at least in a better spot than what it is on this Charizard, you should still check it under magnification, because you will be able to tell that way. And no, you don't need an expensive microscope to do it. You need a $4 jeweler's loupe. It might be hard to take pictures that way. They may not look as good. You can't get down to that like 55x or whatever that you really want to in order to see certain characteristics. But at that point, I mean, that grading companies should be offering that. But you, for your own intensive purposes, if you want to verify your card, whether it's in a case or not, 30x jeweler's loupe, $4, eBay. It might take a while to get to you. I think there's some on Amazon that are maybe closer to $10. With the amount of money that's being spent on this cardboard, it doesn't make any sense to not have one. You should have it on your desk whenever you receive something or you see something suspicious. Give it a check. I'm not saying check every common and uncommon from modern sets, but in terms of if there's ever anything questionable or anything of higher value that you're concerned about, that you'd like some extra certainty about, in my opinion, it's better for you to check it yourself, learn from these videos, than to actually submit it for grading. You can do that as well if you want, if you prefer to have graded cards in your collection or you're reselling them. But good idea to check them before you send them in, before you buy them, or after you buy them rather, if they're already graded. Regardless, if it's expensive, take the 2 minutes it takes to check your p-hole and check your stamp, anything else, depending on what card it is. And if you have comparisons, go back and forth. If you have the exact card, look online. There's lots of copies of every set card in higher resolutions that you can use as a comparison. Or even then, just ask somebody that you know owns the card, whether it be on E4, in Discord or whatever. Chances are someone has the card. They can give you an idea of what it's supposed to look like. If something looks off and you catch it and you're not really sure if it's actually something wrong or a defect or some kind of variant, just ask. People will help you identify whether that's a real thing or not. Especially if you have detailed photos with magnification. Even if you use your phone with the jeweler's loupe, you can get a pretty good image of the rosette pattern on the card in specific locations. People can compare, or people that have looked at it enough can probably just tell you straight up from those images. So practice makes perfect. But yes, again, you should, with some time spent on this stuff, learning about it, you should value your opinion more than that of a grading company. In my opinion, in your opinion, get that confidence, build that up, and know what you're looking for. And I think everyone should have the opportunity to do that. And that's why a lot of the stuff in my channel, on my channel, and in the Microscope thread and everything else, focuses on that. Okay, so Fazool here is saying, I paid very good money for this card and bought into the premium of PSA to ensure exactly this didn't happen. I knew that you could have misgrades, but falsely authenticating. So just like anything, there's human error. And again, no offense to the graders, but most of these guys are paid, guys and gals are paid not very much to be there. They don't spend a lot of money. If you're only paying, I don't know what the grading fees are now. I think the best you can get is like $50. But if you're paying $10 on a bulk submission, they can't spend all day on your card, and they can't afford to pay somebody that's an actual expert. Even if they are an expert, are they an expert in Pokemon? Are they an expert in sports? Do they know what they're looking for? As we'll see with this mess, sometimes none of the above. All right, what else does he say here? I'm quite afraid they will just say it's real as it is in their interest. Maybe they will have a good explanation. We'll be sending the pictures and colors GIF when I get back home to customer service. This is extremely frustrating. Yeah, that's the thing. It's rough for the person involved, especially when they're relying on that PSA authentication. And now to get a little bit of a runaround, as we'll see, is not a good experience for anyone. So M here says it also has smudges. I'd say 80% fake, 20% real. At this point, I would already say that it's almost certainly fake. Misaligned real. Okay, so a lot of these images were also included in Fazool's email, as we'll see. Update, though not from PSA, I was able to find the seller who originally sold me the card. He has continued to do this with almost no repercussions a full year after I bought the card in May of 2016. So here we go. And this is our boy Mark Delvey. The account is no longer active and or is changed. But this is our culprit here. So not only does it look suspicious now, to the point that you can almost certainly say that it's fake, but the guy is also selling other ones that are fake. So here's where it gets into negative feedback. Always check a seller's negative feedback. Sometimes it's just customers being ridiculous, but at the same time, if you start seeing stuff where he's selling fake cards, fake stamps, whatever, that's a red flag. Stay away from it. Too good to be true. But yeah, so it looks like the negative feedback only really started after that, which is unfortunate for Fazool in this case. So here we go. We have the email to PSA, the original one, where he says, "Hello, I purchased a graded first edition Charizard card some months back. I've been adding to my PSA collection over time, and while sorting through it yesterday, I took a close look at the stamp and had some very serious concerns. I had assumed because the card was graded by PSA and the case was not tampered with in any way that it would be authentic, but quite a bit of evidence has arisen that could mean it's not." So here he gives the cert number. Here's some pictures, the ones that we looked at. Here are some pictures of the Charizard stamp next to other first edition stamps for comparison. We looked at those as well. Here's a GIF of my card with another authentic first edition Charizard overlaid, showing the clear difference in stamp placement. We saw that. A picture of another graded example of the first edition Charizard card. And finally, a link to a discussion about my card with a group of other experienced collectors. And in my opinion, even these folks at this point in time especially were far greater experts than the people at PSA that are authenticating it. So at that point, I get it if you want to resell the stuff, but why would you not just take their opinion over the graded copy? I mean, I get it. They probably can't all day and night authenticate your cards for you, but if there is something that's outside of your realm and looks suspicious, there's lots of people that will help you and tell you that, yeah, it's fake. So here we go. There's no doubt that the stamp is problematic. Sad face. I've never run into this type of problem with any of my other PSA purchases, and I didn't think I ever would. Thank you for your time and help. So at this point in time, with this much shown to them, this should be put on absolute priority. Not only because you have a customer that now has something that is clearly shown as inauthentic, but at the same time, you should be extremely concerned that this person that submit this card is also submitting other fake stamps. So the longer this goes on and the longer it's not resolved, the more these get into circulation with PSA where they have the guarantee. The last thing they want or should want is this guy just stamping every card, them all getting out onto the market, and then all of a sudden PSA has to reimburse everyone that has these fake stamps. So, especially if they leave it too long, if the stuff goes up in value. So I can only imagine if you had a fake stamp now, the value is the value now, which would be far greater than what it was then. I don't know what a PSA for a first edition base Charizard goes for right now, but it's almost certainly not $500. So, he also says, "Hello, I guess you're indeed very busy with your email services. I also wanted to include this close-up image of the stamp that a fellow collector made in the thread linked about, as I think it is very telling." a bit filled with anxiety, but I'm sure this situation will be resolved as I've only had a professional experience with PSA in the past. So here, Jackie replies to Fazool and says, hello, the certification number is coming up in our online database. However, in order to tell if the item in question is the actual item reference on the cert number, we would need you to send in the item for the experts to examine the card in person. In order to have the card reviewed, you would need to fill out the card submission form, psacard.com, content, and PDF. Placing the declared value for the item in addition, check off other section and write in management review. Please keep in mind you will be liable for the shipping fees. So, already not a good start. Seems a very much cut and paste response on something that shouldn't be a cut and paste response, because this should be concerning for not only the customer in this point, for Fazool, who now has the card, but also you should be giving him a shipping label. Instead of reselling this card, he wants to turn it in, and I think that is in everyone's best interest. If he sends it in, they reimburse him for the price of the card under their guarantee, and they destroy the card, or they mark it, use it as basically as a template to not only show the graders, but in case more come in, they can do a comparison that way. I think that's the play right now, but that is not what they're going to go with. Holder tips. PSA holders are tamper evident. So it's obviously, if they looked at the pictures, it wasn't tampered with. You'd see the frosting around the outside of the case if they did. More emails. So we have another email sent from PSA to Fazool where they say, I'm contacting you in regards to a first edition Charizard that we received for management review. We have reviewed the card and can't seem to find anything wrong with it. What was the reason it was sent in for management review? So how they don't have all the information already logged on this is a mystery. But the fact that not only did they grade the fake stamp the first time or authenticate the first time, they now just said again that they reviewed it and still can't find anything wrong with it. After all of this information was provided that they don't seem to have in front of them, but at the same time, they just authenticated the same fake stamp twice. So I don't know what that tells you. Clearly, someone's not doing their job. So here's the reply from Fazool, who says, Hi, Bryant. I had assumed that my past emails would be forwarded to whoever was reviewing the card. My apologies. I will include all the information here again, but long story short, the card is authentic, but the first edition stamp on it is most certainly aftermarket. I would say more forged or added in bad faith. I purchased a graded first edition Charizard some months back. I have been adding to my PSA collection over time, and while sorting through it, I took a close look at the stamp and had some very serious concerns. I had assumed because the card was graded by PSA and the case was not tampered with in any way, that it would be authentic, but quite a bit of evidence has arisen that could mean it is not. So here's all the same information provided once again. Basically copy paste. And then Fazool also adds one more thing of note I forgot to include. Upon magnification, it can clearly be seen the stamp isn't printed correctly as well. Another follow-up here. Hello again, Brian. I just received an email saying that my PSA order has shipped via USPS. This does not make any sense. I wasn't even responded to before it was sent back. What is going on? I would really appreciate some help. Thank you. So here, instead of resolving the issue, they're just pushing it through because they probably have an open order number, or it's not really an RMA. I don't know what you would call it. Some sort of service number that's open that they're just trying to close the ticket and send it back to them. The communication here is some of the worst I've ever seen, but that's kind of what you get with some of these larger companies. You get copy paste, you get the runaround over and over and over again. And what should be something that's dealt with right away is now going to be prolonged for absolutely no reason. All right, so here they finally reply to him, and they say, apologies for not reaching out before shipping the card. Our team of graders, including our head grader, reviewed the card and concluded that the card and stamp are indeed authentic. Apologies for not reaching out to you before shipping the card out. If you have any further questions or would like to discuss this over the phone, please call customer service directly at 1-800 and ask for myself. So I can only imagine how long you'd be on hold there, just according to the lack of communication in these emails. So I don't know if this is a third time that they're now authenticating this fake stamp, and their head grader apparently also doesn't know what they're looking at, how they don't have examples there. They already, even if they don't have examples on hand, it's already been pointed out to them in all of these images that we've looked at why it's not real, why it's been added afterwards. I don't get it. I have no idea how this has even gone on to this point, but it has. All right, so we have another email here from Stacy, who says, good afternoon. We've received your order here for management review. This card has been reviewed by both our management team and grading department. We have determined that the results of the card will remain as is. This card will be shipped back to you tomorrow on our account. You will receive an automated email once the order has been shipped out, which will include the package tracking number. Please feel free to call me if you'd like to discuss. Like, how many times does this have to be authenticated before they just look at the pictures and figure out that they made a mistake? Hard to say here if this is just they're blindly recasing the thing instead of actually looking at the issues, actually reading through the email, taking the time to actually check and compare it. It's clearly fake. Still going, still ongoing. So I think this was in 2017, and I think that the process by PSA in terms of, I was going to say like emergency situations, but situations like this that should have the care and attention that they deserve and that are in the best interest of both PSA and the customers. This stuff, I think they do a much better job of this now. Just to be fair, this is an absolute nightmare and inexcusable for both Fazool and I guess anyone else that's involved. Like, anyone else is going to get these fake stamped cards. Who knows if they're still in the wild? There might be some out there. Someone might be holding on to one of these for years and not realize that their stamp isn't real. So that's another thing with transparency, with why PSA wouldn't pull every single number that was submitted by the same person and do sort of like a recall similar to an automotive thing, which is kind of forced. So would they always do it? Probably not, if it wasn't mandated by the government. But I don't know. I think it's in their best interest because the cards are going to go up in value, and then when they have to guarantee them later on, it's going to be an even bigger payout, and they'll probably fight it even harder. Just bad. Okay, so here. I sent the card in because I had explicit instructions to do so. Please do not ship back this card yet. I was told this specifically. I posted this in the thread, but wanted to PM you as well. PSA will refund the difference for the card. Here's the information. I just got off the phone with PSA. So they shouldn't be refunding the difference in the card because the card is altered. The card has zero value in my opinion. At this point, it's a shadowless Charizard, but it's not the same as a shadowless Charizard anymore because it's been tampered. It has the ink on it, the fake stamp on it, which, in my opinion, it pretty much should be destroyed at this point in time. That, or I don't know how you would designate that it's been altered, but it's just not a good idea for this thing to be in circulation anymore. Okay. Fazool's call. PSA's customer service. I spoke with Nick on the phone. He said you can reference him if need be. He also told me the stamp was deemed to be incorrect. Most importantly, the card is covered under the grade guarantee. Basically, since the card is real and the stamp is not, you will be compensated for the difference in value between a first edition Zard and a shadowless Zard. No, that is not how it should happen. Similar to when they compensated, got it with his PSA 9 through 9 to 7 grade situation. So now we have phone call number 2 with PSA. Fazool right on package. Attention Stephanie. Right on submission. Review for fake first edition stamp and grade guarantee. So this is dragged on for so much longer than it needed to. We had a thread on E4 with numerous people chiming in. We had Gary trying to lead a charge on people basically splitting the cost of the card in order to reimburse Fazool for it, cracking it out, and basically verifying the fact that the stamp is going to smudge. We had Scott Pratt made phone calls to try and get this resolved, numerous emails with enough evidence and examples to show them exactly what was wrong with the card. But it still ends up getting shipped back. So Bevy here, I just wanted to include this because they had a situation with the same seller where they graded with GMA. And here's basically what you're looking at. This is what would happen if the card was cracked out and you rubbed on the stamp. Pokemon here says, so a friend of mine was sending 2 first edition shadowless Charizards to PSA with me this month. After reading through this thread, I decided to check his stamps before sending. After looking, it was obvious one was off. Smudged my finger across it and voila. Also asked if it was from Mark Delvey on eBay and he confirmed it was. So here you go. Even more evidence that our boy Mark Delvey here is a scammeroni. He's fake stamping stuff. Apparently this one he didn't get graded, so that's the thing too. PSA at this point obviously should look into who was submitting these cards to find out if it was actually Mark Delvey that was sending them in. If so, the account needs to be closed and everything that they've ever submit needs to be looked at least if it's suspect of the same sort of tampering, which is also good that they would have a catalog of images of all of these cards, because then they could go in and at least verify or check which ones are the real suspects, so you're not having them send in something that's like an unlimited Charizard or something like that this person might not have been sending exclusively fake cards in. But it's a mess. It's an all-around mess, and it would be a nightmare to resolve, but it's better than the alternative of just kind of letting it be and people sitting on fake stamps forever. And then, needing a refund or a guarantee years later when the card is 10x what it is. He also got him to pay through PayPal Friends and Family. So there, guys, do not buy stuff PayPal Friends and Family, even though you think that somebody's reputable that has a big name. Look at Mark's cards. Look at all this other stuff. Unless you really trust the people or are okay with losing the money on it, then always goods and service and check the item on receipt. The worst thing that can happen is like you wait too long and then all of a sudden you realize that it's fake or something like that. So best to, when you buy the item, PayPal goods and service, you're protected. Check the item right away. Use your $4 jeweler's loop. Check your stamp, check your P-hole, whatever you got to do. So, yeah, stay clear of this guy. I would say so. So, Fazool here. Sorry for the slow update. Some very important IRL stuff came up, and I unfortunately had to wait an extra day or two to get back to this. So here, I just wanted to show this is the reslabbed. So, not only did they check the first edition stamp, but they also recased it. And it's the same cert number, but you'll see here they have the newer label. So they took it out and still didn't confirm that this was fake. It's hard to say if they even checked the stamp because it seems like they didn't read and look at any of the images for comparison. Their top grader probably just did the same thing they do all the time. They looked at the card. Yeah, that's a real card. But didn't pay enough attention to the actual stamp, where the issue was, where it was clearly outlined. That's the issue with the card. so it got postponed for nothing. So this is after the fact, but I thought it was important to include. Fazool says, the card was not returned. When I inquired what would be done with the card, I was told that PSA's insurance company is purchasing it from them. Maybe it was just strange wording. I thought they would just file to use their insurance, not actually sell the product to the insurance company, but I'm pretty sure the card will not be seen again. So that's probably it too. They might have to show some sort of form of destruction, or that it's not going to be resold, or that it was actually fake. It would be nice if they kept it as a reference, but at the same time, maybe they hole punch it or something like that to make sure that it doesn't leave or get sold as something else. But here we go. Just happy after all that time to finally get it resolved, which is pretty wild that it took that much time, effort. He should have never been charged for shipping. He should have been thanked for turning it in. And hopefully we see more of that in the future. I think, as I said, I think the PSA process on this stuff, where stuff either ends up being the wrong grade, or especially stuff that was tampered with or fake or anything like that, I think they're much better at getting that resolved sooner rather than later. It seems like they have more of a department that specializes in that at this point in time. So hopefully they improve on it. Hopefully this was a learning lesson for them and for everyone else. Don't trust a card just because it's graded. Check the card anyway. The resources are here on the channel. Again, Microscope resource thread on E4. You can always ask people if you have your doubts. Get your jeweler's loop. We got the jeweler's loop used in a video with the vivid voltage fake booster box on all aspects. But yeah, just in general, it wouldn't take that long to learn how to verify these cards are real. The more you handle them, the more easy it's going to be with the naked eye, or to see that something's wrong with the card. Usually it has to be in person in order to get a real opinion or solid authentication. But that's just it. Just educate yourself, and you won't have to worry about it. So here we get the traditional, the deactivated in the database, which is good. I think it's a good idea that they do this with anything. So that might be another good indicator as well. Before you go to purchase a PSA card, whether it be on eBay or anywhere else, go check the cert number. The database is there. It only takes 2 seconds to type it in, especially if it's an expensive purchase, or from a seller that might be a little bit sketchy. As always, if it's too good to be true, it likely is, and just stay away from that. There's no amount of cert verification that's going to save you, but you never know. This might come up with a deactivated, which is usually in the case of something that ends up being fake or stolen or anything like that. It's a good idea to check this. So we will include, so this is the Microscope resource thread. Again, I'll put it in the description, a link to it. I think you had to be signed up for E4 in order to look at it, but if you're not and you're watching this video this far in, then why are you not on E4? So this was an example of Gary's smudged first edition stamp, and this is the most smudged one I've ever seen, but it is indeed real. So yeah, it does look bad, but it's dry at this point. So it would have been when it was first stamped, it was still wet. And here under magnification, you can see that it is indeed real stamp. Real versus smudge. So some of the time, these weren't dry enough, and they'll even leave a mark on the back of some of the cards. Sometimes it'll pick up some of the actual stamp. But that's about it. And then even under higher magnification, there's no way that the materials used are going to, and the dimensions used are going to be mimicked by anyone. This is what should be done at the grading facility, whether they like to admit it or not. You can probably buy a couple $1,000 microscope, and each first edition stamp that comes through here, they can probably easily check. That goes in without like having actual software and imaging and stuff like that. Yeah. If they're just checking and verifying it, then they don't necessarily need that, but this process should be done. So the dimensions are never going to change. The stamps were stamped with the stamp. So, and here we see a real stamp versus a fake stamp, and this one was actually printed onto the card, but you'll see there's like a texture and a certain ink that's used on these first edition stamps that I just don't believe that anyone can replicate it to this extent, that under magnification you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Well, guys, thanks for sticking it through with me here. This may be a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be, but I think it's important to go through all these details. And again, the resources are all here. I'm going to share it with everyone publicly. Learn from it. Check your own stuff. Protect yourself. Protect others. If you see something that's off, report it. That's about it. Join the Discord. Come hang out. See you next time.